Our weekly immigration news roundup is brought to you by the law firm of Figueroa and Associates. For a consultation on any immigration or legal matter, please call 855-768-8845. That's 855-768-8845. For full stories and more immigration news, visit www.theimmigrantsjournal.com. That's www.theimmigrantsjournal.com.
Hello, my name is Mary Campbell, legal assistant at the law firm of Figueroa and Associates and your presenter with Week's Immigration News. We begin how Mayor Adams and President Biden helped set the stage for immigration reform. However, unwittingly, the last time Congress enacted immigration reform was 1986. Ronald Reagan was president. Ed Koch was New York mayor. Platoon was in the movie theaters. Space Shuttle Challenger exploded on takeoff from Cape Canaveral, Florida. Since then, Congress and the White House have only known stalemate and inaction on comprehensive immigration reform, including the grant of asylum. But at least one leading expert on immigration issues thinks that could soon change, due in part to the arrival of hundreds of thousands of migrants in New York and other U.S. cities, as well as the acts and omissions of Mayor Eric Adams and President Joe Biden. In an interview, Muzaffar Chishti, a senior fellow and director of the Migration Policy Institute office at New York University School of Law, said the challenge of dealing with so many newcomers at once has prompted a growing number of Democrats to change their unwavering pro-immigrant policy views, making it increasingly possible a deal will be reached as part of a larger package, including U.S. aid to Ukraine and Israel. Deaths of 3 migrants on U.S.-Mexico border raises tension between White House and Texas. Tensions between Joe Biden's administration and Texas over the immigration crisis are on the rise as federal and local authorities continue their dispute over the surveillance of the Mexican border. The friction between the two has recently intensified, days after 3 Mexican migrants, a young mother and her 2 children, aged 8 and 10, drowned in the Rio Grande while trying to reach the United States. The tug-of-war between the two parties has made one of the most dangerous international immigration routes even more lethal. Meanwhile, in New York, shelter shuffle leaves hundreds of migrants waiting outside in below-freezing temperatures as snow fell on New York City Tuesday morning. Dozens of migrants continue to wait outside the city's reticketing center at the now-closed street Brigid's Catholic School on East 7th Street in below-freezing temperatures. They wore beanies, held umbrellas, and covered themselves with emergency blankets. Some trembled from the persisting cold and rain. While some migrants were slowly ushered inside the building, others continued to arrive, lining up behind one another. Many migrants were just looking for a cot to sleep on. NY's Workers' Compensation Board joined state effort to protect undocumented workers during labor investigations. The New York State Workers' Compensation Board has joined a wider state effort in shielding non-citizen workers from retaliation and deportation during labor disputes, an extension of the protections implemented in 2023 by the Biden administration. Through an interagency partnership with the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, DHS, the board will now work with non-citizen workers, including undocumented workers, and their advocates to gain temporary protection from prosecution and potential deportation, as well as the ability to work legally in the U.S. if the worker is party to a workers' compensation claim. This action will protect non-citizen workers from unscrupulous employers who threaten them with removal or other forms of retaliation for cooperating with a board investigation or exercising their right to file a workers' compensation claim for a work-related injury or illness. In other news, CAP reached for additional returning worker H-2B visas for the first half of FY 2024. U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, USCIS, has received enough petitions to reach the cap for the additional 20,716 H-2B visas made available for returning workers for the first half of fiscal year 2024 with start dates on or before March 31, 2024, under the H-2B supplemental cap temporary final rule. FY 2024 TFR. Jan 9, 2024 was the final receipt date for petitions requesting supplemental H-2B visas under the FY 2024 first half returning worker allocation. USCIS is still accepting petitions for H-2B non-immigrant workers with start dates on or before March 31, 2024 for the additional 20,000 visas allotted for nationals of El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, Haiti, Colombia, Ecuador, and Costa Rica, country-specific allocation, as well as those who are exempt from the congressionally mandated cap, Fake Addy deceived immigrant investors of $700,000. Feds say a Brazilian woman is charged with posing as an immigration lawyer and defrauding her purported clients of roughly $700,000 under the guise of helping them obtain visas reserved for foreigners who invest in U.S. businesses, according to federal prosecutors. Asylum seekers slam feds' use of flawed app at border. Asylum seekers have fired back at the Biden administration's bid to end their California proposed class action challenging the government's use of a smartphone app to book appointments, arguing they've sufficiently alleged they were forced to wait indefinitely in dangerous conditions with a flawed app as their only lifeline. And finally, let's wait for Trump. House GOP again says quiet part out loud on immigration and border, as Josh Marshall of Talking Points memo assessed. Two things to note here. First, Johnson isn't saying they won't consider this bill. He's saying they won't consider any bill until Trump is elected. Punchbowl reporter Jake Sherman appears to have accepted the GOP wording that Congress can't solve the border until Trump is elected. But there's more here. Johnson is saying openly that they won't pass any bill until Trump is elected. In other words, however out of control they claim the border is, they want to keep it that way through November to use it as a political issue. There's a bipartisan deal, but House Republicans are rejecting it out of hand. The following is a statement from Vanessa Cardenas, Executive Director of America's Voice. Stick a fork in the notion of a bipartisan immigration and border agreement this month or this year. House Republicans are making it clear that they are motivated by 2024 politics and not trying to seriously broker solutions that address migration and forge an orderly border. While everyone agrees we need a change in the status quo, Republicans aren't going to lift a finger to trying and deliver needed funding and solutions on immigration and border policy, help U.S. cities or border communities, strengthen infrastructure or personnel at ports of entry, or fund a functioning asylum system. Unfortunately, the GOP's political motivations are holding hostage aid to Ukraine and needed resources to help our country address our migration challenges. But at least they're now admitting the quiet part out loud, namely that doing nothing is their goal. Democrats should heed the advice of Andrea Flores in her terrific New York Times op-ed and shouldn't walk into a political trap that Republicans are creating. The policy proposals on the table will only worsen the border situation, so there is nothing to gain by making concessions to those uninterested in taking action. Thank you.
Our weekly immigration news roundup is brought to you by the law firm of Figueroa & Associates. For a consultation on any immigration or legal matter, please call 855-768-8845. That's 855-768-8845. For full stories and more immigration news, visit www.theimmigrantsjournal.com. That's www.theimmigrantsjournal.com.